She texted, "It was just a moment," but that moment shattered everything we built. I stared at the screen so long the message thread blurred. The tiny grey bubble burned into my vision even when I blinked. My thumb hovered uselessly over the keyboard, the phone suddenly heavy in my hand, too bright in the dark of my car. The engine was off, keys still in the ignition, my seatbelt half unclicked because I'd been on my way up to her apartment when my phone vibrated. Now I was just frozen. Outside, someone laughed on the street. A dog barked 2 floors up. Inside the car, my ears were full of my own heartbeat, and the faint creak of the leather seat as my chest started to rise and fall too fast. I read it again, it was just a moment. The little read 9:41 p.m. under my last message sat there like an accusation. My hands started to shake. I set the phone down face up on my thigh, then immediately flipped it over because the sight of her name at the top of the screen made my stomach lurch. The dash lights threw a dull glow over my hands. The steering wheel felt weirdly far away, like I'd been shrunk down and dropped into some toy version of my own life. I ran my tongue along the back of my teeth, trying to ground myself, but my mouth tasted sour, like fear and reheated coffee, and something else I didn't want to name. It was a Sunday night, which is funny in a not actually funny way because Sundays used to be our night. We'd been together for 5 years, me 31M, her 29F, and Sunday evenings were reserved for the ritual. Grocery run, making a big batch of something for lunches, half watching some series while she lay with her feet in my lap and complained about Monday. It was almost comforting, the predictability of it. Until about 3 months ago, when Sunday nights started to feel like meetings, or like we were both trying not to say something out loud. I'm on a throwaway because some of our mutual friends know my main, and I don't want this to get back to her in story form before I figure out what the hell I'm doing in real life form. I'm also not looking for a neat answer because I don't think there is one. I just need somewhere to put this, because every time I try to keep it all in my chest, it feels like I can't breathe. Her name, Mia. We met at work, of course. I'm a software engineer for a mid-sized company that thinks it's a startup, even though it's been around for a decade. Beanbags in the common area, kombucha on tap, the whole thing. She was hired as a product manager for one of the newer teams. First conversation we ever had was about a bug, which is the least romantic sentence I've ever typed, but it's true. I was at my desk, headphones on, staring at a ticket I'd already reassigned to myself twice. She appeared at my elbow with her laptop tucked against her chest and this little crease between her eyebrows. "Hey, sorry to interrupt," she said. "I just wanted to ask if the timeline on 1742 is real or aspirational." I pulled off my headphones. "Which one's 1742? "The search result filtering thing," she said. "The one where users can filter by mood or intent or whatever the marketing team's on right now." I glanced at my screen. "Oh, aspirational," I said immediately. She snorted. "Thought so. Do you mind if we adjust it? I'd rather underpromise and overdeliver than the other way around." That was my first clue that we might get along. Most PMs I'd worked with were more ship it now, fix it later types. She felt sane. We ended up in a meeting room that afternoon, hashing out priorities with sticky notes. She had neat handwriting and a habit of tapping her pen against her lips when she was thinking. Every time someone threw out a ridiculous idea, she'd tilt her head and say, "Okay, but what problem is that actually solving?" in this calm, curious tone that made people rethink without feeling stupid. I remember watching her through the glass wall, thinking, she's dangerous. Not in the "she's going to ruin my life" way I'd eventually mean, but in the "if I'm not careful, I'm going to like her way too much" way. We started with Slack messages, work stuff at first, then a meme here and there. Then one afternoon she sent, "I heard you're the person to talk to about where the good coffee is around here. I refuse to drink whatever that sludge is in the kitchen." "That sludge is how I write performant code," I replied. "Show some respect." But I sent her the address of a place 2 blocks away. We bumped into each other there enough times that it stopped being an accident. On our first actual date, I didn't realize it was a date until halfway through. She messaged me on a Friday afternoon, "Hey, a bunch of us are going to trivia at the Roost tonight, you should come." When I got there, it was just her, nursing a cider and scribbling team name ideas on a napkin. She smiled when she saw me. "Everyone bilayed," she said, rolling her eyes, "which is incredibly rude, but their loss, your gain. You're not allowed to leave. I already registered us as less quizerables." "Wow," I said, "you really committed to that." "Absolutely," she said. "Sit down, we're going to crush this." We didn't crush it, we came 5th. But somewhere between her melodramatically clutching my arm when she got an answer wrong by 1 year and her triumphant, I knew it. When she nailed a question about 90s boy bands, I realized my face hurt from smiling. She walked me to my tram stop afterwards. It was one of those early spring nights where the air still has a bite to it, but the trees are pretending it's warmer. "This was fun," she said, shoving her hands in her pockets. "Yeah," I said, "we should do it again sometime. Maybe when your imaginary friends don't bail." She laughed, then held my gaze a fraction longer than normal. "Or we could skip inviting them and just call it a date," she said. "Oh," I said, eloquent as ever. "Yeah, I'd like that." She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, quick but sure. "Good," she said. "Text me when you get home." That was Mia, direct without being harsh, funny without being mean, warm, the kind of person who remembered how you took your coffee and the name of your childhood dog. We fell into it pretty easily. I'd had relationships before, but they'd always felt like effort, in a way that left me relieved when they ended, even if I was sad. With Mia, even the effort felt soft. She'd leave sticky notes on my monitor. "Remember to eat lunch, Code Goblin." I'd send her lyrics to songs I knew she liked in the middle of long meetings. She met my older sister and actually laughed at her terrible puns. I went to her best friend's art show and genuinely liked the paintings. About a year in, she moved into my apartment. It wasn't a grand gesture. Her lease was up, my place had slightly more sunlight and slightly less mold. We divided chores on a whiteboard like nerds. She'd hum while she loaded the dishwasher. I'd stand behind her at the sink, arms around her waist, chin on her shoulder. We made Sunday pasta a thing, because she claimed my aglio e olio could solve all of life's problems. If you'd asked me then, I would have said we were happy. Not Instagram happy, just real life happy. The first hint of trouble came disguised as good news. Mia got promoted. Our company did this big restructure, the kind where they call it flattening hierarchy, but what they really mean is layoffs are coming. In the middle of that, they created a new role, senior product lead for this big, cross-functional initiative. I'd been informally leading some of the tech side of that project, so part of me thought maybe they'll recognize that. They didn't. They gave Mia the product lead position. I was genuinely happy for her when she told me. She came home buzzing, waving the formal offer email on her phone like a golden ticket. "They want me to head up the whole thing," she said, eyes bright. "I get to actually shape the vision, not just shepherd Jira tickets around like lost sheep." "That's amazing," I said, pulling her into a hug, and I meant it. She deserved it. She worked her ass off. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't also a little itch under my skin. Not at her, but at the situation. I'd been quietly grinding on the same codebase for 4 years. My own promotion conversation kept getting pushed to next quarter. Watching her get the title and the pay bump I'd been low-key craving messed with me more than I wanted to admit. She noticed, of course she did. "You've been weird this week," she said one night as we brushed our teeth side by side. Mouthful of toothpaste, I mumbled, "Have not." She gave me a look in the mirror. "Tom." I spat, rinsed, avoided my own reflection. "I'm fine," I said, "just tired." "Are you mad I got the role?" she asked, blunt as ever. "No," I said too quickly. "I'm proud of you." She put her toothbrush down, turned to face me fully. "Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive," she said. "You can be happy for me and also a bit salty at our charming employer." I sighed. "It's not your fault," I said. "I just feel a bit stuck, I guess." "Then say that," she said. "To me, not to the kitchen sink at 2 a.m. when you think I can't hear you sighing." "I don't sigh," I protested. "You do a very specific sad hippo exhale," she said, demonstrating. "It's haunting. I hear it in my dreams." I laughed because how could I not? She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around my waist. "We're on the same team, remember," she said into my shoulder. "Your wins are my wins are your wins. If you want to look elsewhere or talk to your manager or start that indie project you keep sketching in your notebook, I've got you." "I know," I said, and I did. But I also didn't quite know how to say, "Seeing you move forward while I feel like I'm treading water makes me feel small," without sounding like a child. So I didn't. I told myself I'd figure it out on my own. Her promotion changed our day-to-day more than either of us anticipated. Suddenly, she was in more meetings. Just jumping on a quick call became a lot of our evenings, her laptop balanced on her knees on the couch. She traveled twice in 3 months for stakeholder workshops. On one of those trips, she met Daniel. I'm only using his real first name because there are about 1 million Daniels in product, and if you're reading this thinking, "Is that me?" then maybe do some self-reflection, my guy. He worked in the Sydney office, same company, same project. I first heard about him when she came back from that workshop. "Daniel's one of those annoying people who's good at everything," she said, curling up at the end of the couch with a glass of wine. He did a startup in his early 20s, sold it, did a stint in consulting. Now he's slumming it with us mere mortals for reasons unknown. Sounds obnoxious, I said. He is, she said, then shrugged. But he also actually cares about user experience, which is rare in those circles. And he made the best dad joke about stakeholder alignment today, which I hate that I laughed at. After that, his name popped up semi-regularly. Daniel thinks we should push for a bigger scope. Daniel sent me this article about onboarding. It's actually really good. Daniel said our Melbourne office coffee is a crime against humanity. It was never just Daniel, to be clear. She talked about her whole team, but over time his name sharpened in my mind in a way the others didn't. One night a few months later, she was sitting on the bed in an old uni t-shirt, phone in hand, grinning at something. What's funny? I asked, pulling my shirt off and tossing it towards the laundry basket. Missed, obviously. Just a message from Daniel, she said, thumbs still moving. I tried to make it a joke. Should I be jealous? She rolled her eyes, practical as ever, of a guy who once said, let's take that offline unironically, please. She put the phone on the bedside table and patted the spot next to her. Come here, I haven't seen you properly in forever. And for a while, that was enough to shut up the little gremlin in my brain that had clocked her using the word properly. Because she was right, we'd been ships in the night. 2 careers speeding up at the same time, 2 sets of family stuff, 2 exhausted people who loved each other but were also stretching thin. If this was a neat story, the moment would have been some dramatic thing I witnessed. Walking in on them, seeing a photo, hearing a rumor. It started with a feeling. We were at my friend Jard's 30th. It was one of those backyard things, cheap beer in an esky, fairy lights, everyone wearing variations of the same denim jacket. Mia was off in a corner talking to a group of people from my old uni games nights. I was at the grill, flipping overcooked sausages and nodding along to someone's rant about the housing market. I glanced over and saw her laughing at something, head thrown back, hand on someone's arm. Not Daniel, just one of my friends. But something about the way her whole body leaned into the laugh hit me in the chest. I couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed like that at something I'd said. On the tram home, she fell half asleep on my shoulder. I watched her reflection in the window, eyes closed, mouth relaxed, phone screen still lighting up every so often in her hand. Who's messaging you? I asked quietly, more curious than accusatory. She blinked, waking properly. Work Slack, she said. We're pushing a hotfix tonight. At 1 a.m. on a Saturday, I thought, but out loud I just said, they paying you overtime. She snorted. You're adorable. I didn't push it. I told myself I was being paranoid. 2 weeks later, she went up to Sydney again for 2 nights max. She packed light, carry-on laptop, that white blouse she wore when she wanted to look sharp. At the airport drop-off, I kissed her goodbye at the curb. Bring me back a magnet, I said. I'm not going on holiday, she laughed. We're in a conference room the whole time. Then bring me back a pen from the conference room, I said. I live for stolen stationery. She rolled her eyes but smiled, that soft, real smile that always made my chest warm. Text you when I land, she said. And she did. She sent a photo from the plane window, a selfie with some of her team at the workshop, a shot of the whiteboard with so many arrows it gave me anxiety, a good night text at 11 p.m. I went to bed alone, phone on the pillow beside me like a teenage girl. At 1:30 a.m. it buzzed. I was halfway between dreaming and awake. I fumbled for it, eyes gritty. It was a photo from Jard, of all people. It was dark and blurry, obviously zoomed in, taken from above somewhere. It took my brain a second to figure out what I was looking at. A rooftop bar, clusters of people, a string of fairy lights. In the middle, under the lights, 2 people. A woman I recognized immediately. A man whose face I didn't, angled in towards each other in a way that made the context painfully clear. Underneath, Jard had written, "Isn't that Mia?" My chest went ice cold. I sat up too fast, the room tilting. Before I could respond, another message came through. Sorry if I'm wrong, man, that looks like her. I'm at a work thing across the street. Went out for a smoke and saw them. I zoomed in on the photo until the pixels screamed. It was definitely her. Same white blouse, same way her hair fell over her shoulder. The guy had his hand on her waist. Her hand was on his neck. Their faces were close. It could have been a near miss, an almost kiss. It was. Her head was tilted in, his lips were on hers. My brain went loud and quiet at the same time. I didn't respond to Jard. I didn't call her. I just stared at the image until my eyes burned. Then I dropped the phone on the bed like it was hot. She messaged me 20 minutes later. Today was brutal. Daniel's an idiot, but in a charming way. Going to bed, big day tomorrow. Miss you. I stared at that text, at the mention of his name, at the little kiss at the end like everything was normal. I typed, then deleted, several versions of How's the Rooftop Bar. In the end I wrote, everything okay? Yeah, she replied almost instantly. Why? I swallowed, my fingers hovered, then I sent the photo Jard had sent me. No caption, the little typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, can we talk about this when I'm back? The anger came then, hot and sharp. No, we're talking now, I wrote. What is this? Again the typing bubble, then. It was just a moment. And that's where this started. Me in my bed at 2 a.m., phone light stabbing my eyes, reading those 5 words over and over like they might rearrange themselves into something less devastating. I didn't sleep. At 5 a.m. I gave up, showered, went for a run I was in no shape to do, came back, made coffee I didn't drink. By the time it was 8 p.m. the next day and she was due to land back home, I'd worked myself into this weird numb resolve. Which is how I ended up in my car outside her apartment building, phone screen lighting up my lap with that same message as if it had just been sent. It was just a moment. I sat there for another minute, fingers pressed to the bridge of my nose. Then I grabbed my keys, my phone, and went upstairs. She opened the door before I knocked. She must have been watching the hallway from the peephole. Mia looked wrecked, hair pulled into a messy bun that had definitely seen better days, dark circles under her eyes, hoodie zipped up despite the warm night. Her carry-on suitcase sat by the couch, still closed. Hey, she said, voice small. Hey, I said back, because my brain apparently had nothing better. We stood there in the doorway staring at each other for a few seconds. Then she stepped aside, gestured me in. The apartment smelled like her shampoo and stale air. She shut the door carefully behind me, like loud noises might set me off. Do you want some water or? No, I said, my voice came out hoarse. I want you to tell me what the fuck that was. She flinched at my language. We don't usually swear at each other. She walked past me to the tiny kitchen, wrapped her hands around the back of one of the chairs like she needed something solid to hold onto. It was, she started, then stopped, took a breath. It was a mistake. Oh cool, I said, my laugh coming out brittle. That clears it right up. She closed her eyes briefly. Tom. Who is he? I asked, and before you say some random guy I already know. Daniel, she said quietly. Of course, I said. It wasn't planned, she said quickly. We were all out after the workshop, everyone was drinking, it got late, people started leaving and you decided to make out with your charming idiot coworker. I finished for her. Her jaw tightened. We kissed, she said, once for about 3 seconds, and I pulled away straight away and told him it couldn't happen again. I left after that, went back to the hotel and had a panic attack in the bathroom. I was going to tell you when I got back, I swear, I didn't want to do it over text. You see how just a moment, and I was going to tell you don't really match, right? I said. She winced. I know, she said. That was a shitty thing to text. I panicked. I sat down heavily on the edge of the couch. The cushions whooshed under me. My hands were shaking. Were you thinking of him when you messaged me last night? I asked. When you said you missed me? Yes, she said, so fast it surprised me, but not like that. God, this sounds awful. I was fantasizing about him or something. I felt sick, guilty. I wanted to anchor myself back to us. I let that sit there, sour and heavy between us. Has anything else ever happened? I asked. Be honest, please. She stared at the floor. I could see the pulse beating in her neck. No, she said finally. We've flirted, I guess, jokes, banter, stupid stuff. I liked the attention. It made me feel something. But last night was the only time it crossed a line. Did you like it? I asked, hatting myself for needing to know. Her eyes filled. In the moment, yeah, she whispered. That's the worst part. For like 2 seconds it felt exciting, new. Then my brain caught up with my body and I felt like I wanted to peel my own skin off. Great, I said, swallowing bile. So I've been replaced by 2 seconds of excitement. Don't say that, she said, coming around the table, reaching out. I flinched back before she could touch me. Her hand dropped. I'm not trying to minimize it, she rushed on. I know it looks awful. It is awful. I crossed a line we'd always said we wouldn't. I broke your trust. I hate myself for it. I need you to know it wasn't some big affair. There weren't secret hotel rooms and sex and whatever. It was a moment where I made a terrible choice because I've been lonely and stupid and looking in the wrong place for something that's been missing in us. There it was, the missing in us, the sentence I'd been both expecting and dreading. What's been missing? I said flatly. She sat down on the armchair opposite, curling into herself. Connection, she offered. Presence, I don't know, we're like business partners lately. Great at running life admin, not so great at seeing each other. This cheating justification brought to you by couples therapy for cowards, I muttered. That's not what I'm doing, she said quickly. Please believe me, I am not saying this is your fault. I made the choice to cross that line. That's on me. But if we're going to talk about whether there's anything to salvage here, we have to be honest about the fact that we've both been coasting for a while. I looked at her, really looked. The woman I loved. The woman who'd made coffee for my mum when she came out of surgery. The woman who danced like a dad at weddings just to make me laugh. The woman whose mouth had been on someone else's less than 24 hours ago. My chest hurt, my actual chest, like someone had been using my ribs as a punching bag. I don't know if I can do this, I said quietly. Do what? She whispered. Pretend that was just a blip, I said. Pretend it's something we can patch over with a few date nights and some apologies. I'm not asking you to pretend, she said. I'm asking you to consider if you want to try. We can go to counseling. We can have the hard conversations we've been avoiding. We can rebuild if you want to. If you don't, if this is a deal breaker and you need to walk away, I will accept that. I'll sign whatever, I'll move out, Stop, I said, because the thought of her not in our apartment made my head spin, even after what she'd done. She did. We sat in silence for a long time. The fridge hummed. A car honked faintly outside. Finally, I said, why did you call me? When you were lonely, when you felt like we were business partners, why was your first instinct to entertain this thing with him? She wiped her nose with the sleeve of her hoodie, uncaring. It wasn't my first instinct, she said. It was my stupid, impulsive, lizard brain instinct at the end of a long line of bad small choices. I didn't decide one day I'm going to cheat on Tom. I decided to reply to his jokes, to have one extra drink, to not shut down the flirting when I should have, to tell myself it was harmless because it made work less depressing. None of that excuses the end result, but it wasn't a switch I flipped. It was a slope I slid down. She took a shuddery breath. And I didn't call you because I didn't know what to say, she admitted. Hey, I feel unattractive and stuck and like all we ever talk about is release cycles and my parents' dog's arthritis. It sounded stupid in my head. You've got your own stuff. Work stress, your dad, the promotion thing. I didn't want to pile on. So you piled on like this instead, I said. Yeah, she said, voice cracking. Turns out I'm an idiot. I thought about the last few months. The times I'd wanted to tell her I felt left behind by her career. That I was scared I was becoming boring, that I hated how often we were both on our phones in bed but picked mine up anyway. I hadn't said those things either. I just assumed we were strong enough to figure it out by inertia. Maybe that's the most dangerous part of a long relationship, when you stop pruning the garden because you assume the roots are deep enough to survive neglect. I don't know how long we sat there. Eventually, my anger dulled enough to let tears through. I hated that, hated crying in front of her. It felt like giving her proof of the damage she'd done. I don't want to hurt you, she whispered when she saw my face crumble. You already did, I said. We're in the hurt part now. This is the hurt. She nodded, biting her lips so hard it went white. We didn't magically decide that night. Real life isn't a movie where you either kick them out on the spot or forgive them and have dramatic make-up sex. We decided to decide later, to take some space. She stayed at her place. I went back to mine feeling like someone had taken a crowbar to the version of our life I'd been carrying in my head. The next few weeks were enemy territory. I told my sister first. She listened, face going through this whole slideshow, shock, anger, something like sadness. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know, I said. Part of me wants to throw everything she owns out the window. Part of me wants to pretend it never happened and go back to Sunday pasta. She cheated Tom, my sister said. That's not nothing. I know, I said. Do you want to try and forgive her? She asked gently. I don't know how, I admitted. I don't know if my brain can ever unknow that image. I told Jard too, obviously, because he was the one who'd seen it. He apologized about 40 times. I didn't know if I should send it, he said, eyes wide. I thought maybe it wasn't her, but then I thought if it was and I didn't send it. You did the right thing, I said. I'd rather know. He nodded, still looking sick. For what it's worth, she looked conflicted, he said. Like she was into it and then instantly not. I know that doesn't make it okay. I just thought you should know. That image got lodged in my head too, her being into it, her pulling away, both true, both awful in different ways. Mia and I agreed to see a couples therapist before making any big decisions. It felt weird walking into that office still technically together, but also broken. The therapist, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a very calming cardigan, asked us to tell the story from our own perspectives. Mia went first. She didn't sugarcoat it. She said, "I cheated," without euphemisms. She talked about the months of disconnection, the crush on Daniel that she'd let feed her ego, the kiss, the immediate regret. When it was my turn, I surprised myself by not just listing her crime. I talked about our Sunday rituals, my buried resentment about the promotion, the way I'd shut down emotionally when my dad had his stroke last year instead of letting her in, how I'd noticed the distance but treated it like a typo we could skim past. At one point, the therapist said, "Tom, when you saw the photo, what did that moment mean to you?" "It meant I was stupid," I blurted out, "that I'd been walking around thinking we were just having a rough patch and she was out there kissing someone else on a rooftop." "It meant you felt what?" she prompted. "Replaceable," I said, throat tight. Like everything we'd built, years of in-jokes and hospital visits and meeting each other's families, could be outweighed by 3 seconds of novelty. Mia started crying silently. "I didn't feel replaced by him," I added, surprising myself. "I don't even know him. I felt replaced by whatever version of herself she was being in that moment, the one who didn't think about me at all." The therapist hummed softly. "When you texted, it was just a moment. What did you hope that would do?" she asked Mia. "Make it smaller," Mia said immediately. I knew as soon as I hit send that it was pathetic, but in my head I was like, if I can frame it as this tiny thing, maybe he won't throw everything away. "And now?" the therapist asked. "Now I know there's no such thing as just a moment when it involves breaking a promise," Mia said. "It doesn't matter that it was short, it matters that I chose it." We did 4 sessions. In between we texted, saw each other occasionally. It was strange, like dating someone you also wanted to punch. There were glimmers of us in there, sitting on a bench outside the therapist's office, sharing a packet of mints and complaining about the chairs. Laughing, for a second, when she mimicked the way the therapist said MMM with a head tilt. And there were moments where I felt something close to hope. Like when Mia said, in session 3, "I think I got addicted to feeling desired in this cheap, easy way because I didn't know how to ask for it from you without feeling needy." "That's on me too," I said. "I got complacent. I stopped flirting with you like I did at the start. I stopped letting myself be vulnerable. I thought stability was enough." But every time I considered actually moving back towards her, my brain would flash that rooftop image in my mind, like a warning sign. Remember this. Remember that trust broke. In the end, the thing that made the decision for me was stupidly small. We were at her place, sitting on the floor eating takeaway because we'd both had long days. She was telling me about some drama at her sister's work. I was half listening, half watching her hands as she talked. She still wore the ring I'd given her for our anniversary, a simple silver band she'd picked out herself because I don't need diamonds, I need something I can wear while tapping angrily at my keyboard. She was in the middle of some anecdote when her phone buzzed on the table. We both glanced at it out of habit. A preview flashed up, a message from Daniel. She must have seen my face because she reached for it immediately, flipping it over so the screen was hidden. "It's just about work," she said quickly. "We are still on the same project, I can show you," and right there something in me finally clicked. I realized I didn't want a relationship where I needed her to prove things to me every time her phone buzzed. Where she had to show me her messages like a kid presenting homework, where it's just about work felt like a defense rather than a fact. I didn't want to be the guy scrolling through his girlfriend's notifications at 2 a.m. trying to decode emojis. I didn't want to live in a permanent state of audit. "I don't need to see it," I said. She exhaled, half relieved, half wary. "Okay," she said. "But I also don't think I can do this," I added, the words surprising me even as they came out. Her head snapped up. "Do what?" "This," I said, gesturing between us. "The rebuilding, the second-guessing, the trying to put the moment back in whatever box it fell out of. I thought maybe I could. I wanted to, but I can't unknow it. And I don't want to be the guy who punishes you forever either. That's not fair to you, or to me." Her eyes filled. "So that's it," she whispered. I swallowed, my throat hurt. "I think so," I said. For a second, she looked like she was going to argue. I could see the words forming behind her eyes, about therapy, about second chances, about all the years we'd shared. Then something in her posture shifted. She slumped, shoulders coming forward. I get it, she said, voice barely audible. I really do. I broke something I can't fix. I was selfish, and now I don't get to be surprised that there are consequences. It's not just punishment, I said. It's self-preservation. Every time I picture us 5 years from now, I see this night. You, him, rooftop, and I feel less. I don't want our story to be me holding this over your head or swallowing it so deep it comes out sideways. She nodded slowly, tears rolling down. I'd rather you leave with whatever good parts of us still intact, she said, than stay and start hatting me. We cried, we held each other for a long time on that floor, takeaway boxes pushed aside. It was one of the most painful, tender moments of my life. Breaking up with someone you still love is like cutting off your own limb because it's infected. You don't do it because you want to. You do it because the alternative is losing more of yourself slowly. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've moved apartments. New neighborhood, new coffee place, new route to work. It's amazing how much difference it makes to not see the corner where you once watched her run across the street toward you every morning. I told HR I needed to switch teams. I couldn't handle being in the same project ecosystem anymore. Officially, it was for professional growth. Unofficially, it was because hearing Daniel's name in stand-ups made my jaw clench. Mia and I have only seen each other twice since the split. Once at a mutual friend's birthday, where we did the polite, distant nod thing from opposite sides of the room. Once when she came by to pick up a box of things she'd left at mine. Books, a hoodie, the stupid ceramic dinosaur planter we bought on a whim. She stood in my doorway, box in her arms, and said, "You look good." "So do you," I said, and I meant it. She looked different, lighter, in a way I didn't know how to categorize. "I'm not with Daniel," she blurted, like she'd been holding it in. "Okay," I said. I didn't ask for details. It didn't feel like my business anymore. She swallowed. "I'm really sorry, you know," she said, eyes shining. "Not just for the kiss. For all the ways I checked out before that and didn't tell you. For not trusting us enough to say, 'I'm lonely, we need to fix this.'" "I'm sorry too," I said, "for not giving you a place to say that. For thinking we're solid meant we didn't have to maintain anything. For letting us drift and calling it stability." We stood there in that weird, jagged peace for a moment. Then she nodded, said bye Tom, and walked away. I watched her go, felt the familiar pull in my chest, and then slowly it eased. Not gone, but not as sharp. People keep telling me I'll find someone else, that I'll look back on this as a growth experience. Maybe they're right. Right now it still just feels like I'm walking around the outline of something that used to be full. But I've learned some things. I've learned that just a moment is never actually just that, not when it violates trust. Moments are made out of 1,000 smaller choices you make leading up to them. I've learned that you can love someone deeply and still not be able to stay with them after they hurt you. That leaving doesn't erase the good years. It just means you're drawing a line to protect whoever you are on the other side. I've learned that avoidance is its own kind of betrayal. We betrayed each other long before that rooftop, in quieter ways, by not spoken up, by choosing comfort over honesty. Her betrayal was louder, sure, but mine is there too in the things I didn't say. I'm not excusing what she did. That moment will always be the crack line that runs through the story of us, but I also don't want it to be the only sentence anyone remembers. We were more than that moment. We were Sunday pasta and Spanish memes and hospital waiting rooms and drunken karaoke. We were sticky notes and bad trivia team names and shared eye rolls in meetings. And then one night, on a rooftop I wasn't on, we were. She texted, "It was just a moment," trying to make it small. For her, maybe it was the tail end of a slow slide, the tip of an iceberg of dissatisfaction. For me, it was the end of the version of my life where I believed we were unbreakable. Everything we built still matters. It shaped who I am, so did the shattering. Now I'm here trying to build something new, slower maybe, with better foundations, with less pretending. And if I ever find myself on a rooftop, feeling that pull towards something dangerous and easy, I hope I remember how it felt to sit in that car, staring at my phone, wondering how one moment could undo years. Because it was just a moment. It was the moment I realized love lives and dies in the choices we make when we think no one's watching.